My name is Angela Davis, I'm 32 years old. I've been married to Stanley for 3 years. Currently, I'm a stay-at-home wife. Stanley and I had always had a harmonious marriage. Then one day, it all came to an end. Here, this is for you. A divorce paper.
Hey, what are you handing me?
Huh? It seems noisy outside, doesn't it? I never thought I'd say such a line. I had been happily married. Stanley had financial stability, and there were no complaints about childcare or our life together. Of course, our relationship was good, and I thought we could keep having fun together. As I waited for Stanley to return from work, I was preparing dinner when I'm home. Welcome back. Dinner's ready. Oh, let's eat right away. Thanks as always, we conversed happily. This was our daily routine. Even after getting married, we had maintained a good relationship. We hardly ever fought. However, Stanley worked for a multinational company and often had to go abroad for extended periods, so there were times when we couldn't see each other. I felt very lonely during those times. It was a shame that even though we were married, we couldn't spend much time together. Little did I know that Stanley being abroad would turn out to be so detrimental. Well, it goes without saying that Stanley's business trips were problems. Getting back to the story. Welcome back. You must be tired. One day, Stanley's attitude was distant. Usually, he would have said something. Thanks for being here while I was away. I'm really tired, he would usually at least say something simple like that, but on this day, he said nothing. At that time, I thought, well, these days happen and didn't think much of it. Besides, he looked exhausted. At that moment, I decided not to press him. However, on another day, Stanley's attitude was still distant. Welcome back. He said nothing. Even though I told him dinner was ready, he either went straight to his room or to the bathroom. I couldn't figure out what was going on with Stanley. I didn't know if his boss had complained to him or if something unpleasant had happened at work. Then, I had a chance to have dinner at the table. This time, I decided to ask Stanley outright. He ate in silence. While I was concerned about Stanley's demeanor, I continued eating without saying anything. Then, I asked, hey, has something been off with you lately? What happened? What do you mean? Off? Really? Since he didn't answer, I repeated, have you been worried about something lately? You seem a bit different. Nothing's wrong. Just busy with work. Please don't push me. Despite being puzzled by his attitude, I tried to believe his words. We had been married without any issues. Suddenly, our relationship had deteriorated. And, his returns home became later. Except for when he had drinking parties, he had never come home late before. I wondered if he was going to drinking parties every day. Seriously, you're going to happy hour every day? I asked my husband, even though he claimed it was a daily thing. I doubted whether it was possible for him to go out every day. Given Stanley's financial capabilities, attending every day wouldn't be an issue, but one thing remained questionable. I couldn't help but wonder if he was spending more than his salary and our living expenses on something. Because it had been happening every day, I decided to talk to Stanley about it on a day off. Hey, you've been coming home late recently, are you going for drinking every day? Also, we talk less and less. I hate this atmosphere. We don't go out on weekends either, and it feels like you're just ignoring me. Angela, I'm going through a lot. Don't question me about every little thing. Don't worry about it. And what's wrong with coming home late? Just leave the food in the kitchen. I'll eat it later. That's not what I want to hear. I want to know specifically what's been going on recently. I heard you've been working with foreigners a lot lately, is everything okay? Maybe there's a clash of cultures or values? That was when he exploded. What do you know? Work is just one frustration after another. I understand that. Don't lecture me like you know what it's like. Things are tough for me. Just leave the room, he yelled at me for the first time. We had never had such a terrible interaction before. It made no sense why he suddenly yelled. Maybe he was the type whose personality changed after marriage. But there was none of this when we first got married. We had spent time together just like when we were single. Sure, I am a stay-at-home wife. It's hard to understand the feelings. Considering the future, the cost of maintaining the house, and child raising, maybe it was pressure. He never talked about it, but perhaps he was worried about it. He might also have made some mistakes at work. At this point, I still couldn't understand why he had changed so drastically. The next day, Stanley came home late as usual. However, his face bore a distinctly weary expression, different from before. As we quietly ate, I couldn't help but worry about the unsettling changes in Stanley's behavior.
Really, something must have happened, right?
It's just work being busy. I wasn't convinced by his words and felt uneasy inside. His reaction was the same as before. That night, I couldn't sleep, constantly watching the clock, filled with worry. I looked at him anxiously. However, Stanley silently went into the bedroom and fell asleep. Stanley's behavior is odd, he's coming home late, citing increased drinking parties, but is that the truth? The reason became clear a few days later. It was when I checked the mailbox. There was a delinquency notice addressed to Stanley. With a feeling of dread, I checked its contents.
What is this? What?
My mind was engulfed in anxiety and suspicion. Unable to trust Stanley's words anymore, I resolved to find out the truth. And at that moment, I couldn't help but exclaim aloud. A delinquency notice had arrived at our home, addressed to my supposedly well-earning husband. Could it be that he was spending more than his salary and our living expenses on something?
This can't be happening. What, you're spending money on something outrageous?
I wanted to ask him why he was behind on payments. However, at that time, Stanley was not in the country. International calls were expensive, so I didn't contact him then. One day, while Stanley was on a business trip abroad, a credit statement showing late payments arrived at our home. Needless to say, the amount on the statement was astonishingly high. Additionally, it was on a revolving payment plan with interest. Really, what is this all about? I hoped it wasn't just spam mail. However, after repeatedly checking the documents and verifying the phone number, it turned out to be from an official institution, confirming he indeed had debt. 3 days later, Stanley returned to the country and came home. However, he stayed at a hotel, and I wouldn't meet him until a later date. On another day, more delinquency notices arrived, some from financial institutions I had never heard of before. Then Stanley came home. Despite my pressing, he remained silent about everything.
Hey, what's this about? What did you spend so much on? And this, it's all spent overseas. I can't understand everything, but I can tell it's foreign.
Stanley ignored me forever and went to the bedroom to sleep. I felt economically insecure. And then, for a week, Stanley didn't come back home. I assumed he was staying at a hotel. Months after our relationship had deteriorated, one day Stanley brought home a woman who looked young enough to be in high school. Hello, a young woman suddenly entered our home. My mind raced with questions. And she didn't hold back at all. Then Stanley said, "You're in the way. Either leave or replace her. She's my new girlfriend, no, my wife. Stanley's mine now."
What are you saying suddenly? What are you thinking?
She's got her reasons. I need her. You're done here. Choose whether you want to stay and be an unpaid housemaid or leave.
What are you starting with now?
Yeah, and you being here is a nuisance. I have to support her too.
What? Absolutely. I'm appalled by your behavior. And to think you were cheating.
I'm tired of you. So, this was the reason for your recent odd behavior. Oh dear, it looks like Stanley's tired of you. Too bad, he's mine now. Stanley's great. He earns well, works at a multinational company, and travels abroad often, which I envy. To have such a guy, may I take him? Actually, I'll just take him. Being with him will make my life happy forever. Stanley says being with such a cute person is comforting. I'm really excited about our future. I was about to bring hell upon them.
Just be quiet.
The girl clicked her tongue. Really, she had no manners. She probably hadn't received a proper education. But none of that mattered now.
What went wrong? We had such a good relationship.
I have my reasons. My tastes have changed. Well, I got tired of seeing your aging face.
How could you say that? People age, you're aging too. You should understand, you're the same age as me.
That's true, but you could have tried not to age.
I don't understand. If that were possible, great, but it's medically impossible.
You could have gotten plastic surgery, got some nice skin for your body.
Are you serious? Have you lost your mind? Fine, just wait.
I interrupted the conversation and stepped out to make a call. Here's the divorce paper.
Hey, what the hell are you doing?
It's a divorce paper. Just sign it quickly. I'm a nuisance to you, right? And somehow, Stanley was trembling. I thought he would sign it easily, but that wasn't the case. A few minutes later. Hello, a man with a commanding voice arrived. I wondered who he could be. Then, a very authoritative man suddenly asked, "Is this Stanley Davis's home?" Startled, I managed, "That man is Stanley Davis." "Oh, you're the lady." Then the man said, "Stanley Davis, could you please pay back your debt?" Then Stanley exclaimed, "Angela, what have you done? This guy is mafia." I had actually just made a phone call about Stanley's overdue bills. I wanted to find out what he had been spending on and where the bills were from. It turned into a huge issue. Mafia? Why on earth would you get involved with such people?
I had no choice.
Sorry to interrupt this couple's exchange, but if you don't pay back the debt soon, it's going to be a problem. When are you going to pay it back? I lent you the money because I heard you were a high earner at a multinational company. But why are you so behind on payments? I have reasons I can't pay back. Stanley faltered. What had he done? I was speechless, my face a mix of surprise and confusion. Stanley had a hard-to-explain truth hidden between us. At that moment, I checked the details. Looking at Stanley's spending statement, it showed high expenses on dining, gifts, and luxury hotel usage. Filled with shock and anger, I was desperate to know the reasons. I tried to ask Stanley directly, but he evaded the truth. What did you spend it on? It looks like hotels are listed. And this, how much is it in dollars? Plus, there's $5,000, $7,000 on bags and such. What did you just say? The mafia asked. $10,000 for hotels. $5,000 and $7,000 for bags. I was shocked. No matter how high his salary, it's unimaginable to spend such a large amount all at once. Tearing up a bit, I said, "So, you were cheating with her for these amounts? Why did you even marry me? Didn't you love me? We had such a good relationship. You're the worst. What were you doing abroad if it wasn't for work? Just fooling around with a young girl? What are you even thinking, at your age? And to top it off, in debt as well, I'm done," I vented to Stanley. It started well, but our relationship gradually deteriorated, didn't it? I was worried every day about what was happening with you. And this is it, an affair in debt. I'm completely disillusioned with you. I'll be asking for a divorce. At first, Stanley denied it, but under my persistent questioning, he finally admitted to the affair. He reiterated that he had spent a significant amount on his affair partner. I just couldn't stand it anymore. After getting married, my job just didn't go well. I got promoted to management, but I made too many mistakes. I was demoted because I was a disgrace as a boss. Plus, a talented newcomer came, and things got even worse for me. I couldn't compete with a colleague, despite being inexperienced. Work became a source of stress, and I lost my motivation. I was married, and I couldn't back out anymore. The thought of having children was a huge pressure. I couldn't quit my job or even think about switching. I just wanted to give up on married life. I wanted to end everything with Angela. Everything became unbearable, and I wanted to start over with someone new. I thought a young woman who still had hope was better, so I decided to date her. This is her, Lillian Williams. She's 19. Actually, she's been through the same things as me, and somehow, I wanted to solve them together. I felt I had to help her, so I did. Stanley confided this shocking revelation. Of course, what he did was inexcusable. Then I said, "You should have talked to me if you had job troubles. We could have thought about changing jobs. Besides, one of my friends is a job agent. If you had asked them, maybe you could have been freed from your work troubles. Instead, you chose to have an affair with a pretty girl to feel better. That's not forgivable. It's even illegal under the law. You know that, right? It's clear we're supposed to be monogamous." Stanley showed remorse but continued to justify his actions.
But Angela, I hated everything. Married life, work, it was all torture. And I just became a burden.
Stanley tried to justify his actions, but I couldn't hide my indignation. Still, you had no right to cheat. Don't we have a responsibility to protect our marriage? As I listened to Stanley's excuses, I resolved that I could not forgive his actions. There's nothing more to say. I have no intention of continuing this marriage. Divorce is the only option left. Stanley showed a face filled with sadness and regret, but he couldn't contest my decision.
Angela, wait. I can't live without you.
What? Now? That's too convenient. Despite his pleas, I ignored them and stood by my decision. It's over. Our married life ends here. Stanley stood there with a look of despair. He couldn't accept my words and pleaded. Angela, wait. I can't live without you, he still said. But I completely ignored his words. It's over. Our married life ends here. Because you don't love me, do you? Just now, you said, Angela, I hated everything, the married life, the job, everything was a pain. And I just became a burden, or something like that. Isn't that contradicting your claim that you can't live without me? It doesn't make any sense. After that, Stanley remained silent. Then, shockingly, his affair partner said, "Wait, Stanley. What's this about? You had all this debt? Riding in fancy cars, staying at nice hotels, and all those gifts you gave me were on borrowed money? And I heard you were a high earner working for a multinational company. I thought if we got married, I would be happy. But you're involved with the mafia and have debts? How can I be happy with that?"
Wait, Lillian, what are you saying? Didn't you love me?
I don't care about that anymore. I dated you because you said you'd take care of me, take me places. I'm also chased by debts. My family is poor and I'm still running away. I had to work in the nightlife industry, but I can hardly reduce my debt. I thought marrying a high earner like you would make me happy. Unfortunately, being involved with someone so indebted just adds to my burden. Stanley, I'm breaking up with you. And to me, she said, sorry for causing you trouble. I'm done with this. Wait a minute. What do you mean by that? Were you just after my husband's money? And just saying sorry doesn't cut it, does it? You were involved in the affair, so just saying sorry won't do. So, what should I do? It was at that moment. Hey! Incredibly, another mafia member showed up. Oh, Lillian, you're here?
Why are you here?
Did I call you? What have you done? I don't know anything about that.
I also had debts with the mafia.
Sorry to interrupt, but can you pay back the money? It's been a year and I'm in trouble.
Just wait a little longer.
Look, I'm busy today, so I'll leave today. The mafia member withdrew for the moment. I never imagined that even the affair partner was in debt. Afterward.
Well, I'm going to leave now.
At that moment, I stopped her. Planning to run away?
Why would I?
There's something you should do, right?
What's that?
You can't run away like this. What should I do? It's him who should pay for his sins since he cheated on you. While we were talking, the mafia spoke up.
Sorry to interrupt this family discussion, but can you settle the fight later? I just need him to pay me back.
Stanley, you're going to pay back your debts, right?
Yes, I will definitely repay the debt.
Well, if that's the case, it's fine. With that, the mafia left. Then, for some reason, other people also showed up in front of the house. They were the ones I had called about the bills. Davis, please repay your debt soon. 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 About 5 people were causing a commotion. How much debt had Stanley accumulated that so many people would come like this? Stanley, perhaps not wanting to hear it, was covering his ears. When the debt collectors' voices ceased, Stanley turned to me with a troubled expression. Angela, I'm sorry. I've let things get to this point. Even hearing his words, my anger and sadness did not subside.
Sorry doesn't fix anything. What are you sorry for?
But I really do regret it, Angela. If you leave me, I cut him off. Enough.
I don't believe your words anymore.
Stanley stood there, unable to respond for a while. Meanwhile, the phone kept ringing with calls to repay the debts. I stared at him, seeming like I still had something to say.
Hey, I have one question.
Stanley looked at me with a hint of hope.
What is it, Angela?
He was lost for words at my question. From his expression, it was clear he still didn't understand the consequences of his actions. After some time, his mouth moved, but ultimately, he refused to admit his actions.
But, Angela, I
waved him off before he could continue.
Stop. No more excuses.
It's too late now. It's over. My anger only grew with his irresponsible attitude, but I still needed to make a decision.
There's nothing more to talk about here. I'm hiring a lawyer and starting the divorce proceedings.
Stanley couldn't hide his shock at my words, but he also resisted.
Angela, wait. Let's reconsider the divorce. If we talk it out.
At this point, the affair partner left the house. I decided to hire a detective to track her down. But that aside, it's too late. You need to take responsibility for your actions. My resolve was firm, and Stanley seemed to sense it. He was left speechless, standing before me. After that, I hired a lawyer and proceeded with the divorce, and it goes without saying that our relationship was irreparably broken. Stanley couldn't accept my resolution and desperately tried to appeal.
Angela, wait. Let's talk one more time. Let's try to fix our relationship.
I didn't listen to his words, no matter how many times he tried. His past actions and words had left a deep wound in my heart, and I felt that it was no longer possible to repair our relationship.
It's too late. I can't trust your words anymore.
Stanley looked at me with a face full of sadness and regret, but he had no choice but to accept my decision.
I'm really sorry, Angela. Won't you believe we can start over?
I can't trust you anymore.
I think divorce is the best option.
Isn't that right? Sunk in sorrow, Stanley ultimately had to accept my decision. Afterward, I moved forward with the divorce proceedings through a lawyer, resolved to start a new life. Throughout the divorce process, I was tormented by various emotions. Feelings of anger and disappointment towards Stanley, as well as anger and sadness toward myself, mixed together. Yet, at the same time, I strongly felt this was a new start in my life. Despite carrying the pain of the past, I continued to hold on to hope for the future. Stanley, too, was tormented by regret and sadness. His actions had crumbled our marriage and caused trouble for many people, something he deeply regretted. Likewise, Stanley began walking the path toward a new life. His regret and sadness were profound, and it was clear that our separation was a significant loss for him as well. However, he also learned to take responsibility for his actions and worked to live a better life going forward. After the divorce, I put all my effort into reclaiming myself. To heal from past pains and wounds, I even underwent psychological counseling. The time I spent facing myself allowed me to grow and develop inner strength. I also found new hobbies and interests, enriching my personal time. By cherishing moments for myself through travel, art, and sports, I discovered new joys and pleasures. Even after the relationship with Stanley ended, I harbored no hate or anger toward him and was able to forgive him. It was clear that our separation was a significant loss for him as well. Post-divorce, Stanley faced difficult times. Living in an apartment symbolized a new beginning but also indicated the necessity of accepting his past choices and their consequences. Being chased by debt collectors and demanded repayments daily was a mental torment for him. Past affairs and debt issues cast a dark shadow over his life, and he suffered daily from regret and self-blame. Meanwhile, I focused on rebuilding my own life after the divorce. I asserted my rights and took a step toward healing from past wounds. My decision became well known in the community, and Stanley's position became increasingly isolated. As a result, he lost his job and faced tough economic conditions. Similarly, Stanley's affair partner was also forced to accept the consequences of her actions. She was chased by debt collectors. She too started a new life in poverty and loneliness. Stanley and the affair partner had to face the outcomes of their past actions, carrying the burden of their torment and regret as they tried to forge a new path in life. They were required to take responsibility for their choices and view their future lives positively. As for me, I was preparing to heal from the past and start walking a new path in life. Though it might sound repetitive, I was determined to learn from past experiences and aimed for self-growth and independence as I moved forward. With hope for the future in my heart, I was ready to explore new possibilities and advance